I'm going with this list, and I'm starting at number 5 with a player that's not been mentioned yet, Texas A&M's Armani Watts, 126 total tackles. So when the safety makes tackles, we know that's a good thing that he actually got the guy to the ground. We know that that speaks to the defensive lapses, and for Texas A&M, that's been obvious since they've come over from the Big 12. This has not been a good defense, and it leaves it up to the safety to be the last man standing and make the tackle. It also speaks to a lot of plays on the field, so long drives create more opportunities as well for anybody on the defense to make tackles. So sometimes when you're making a lot of tackles, it means you're out there for 12 and 13 play drives. So Armani Watts making the tackle, so expect those tackle numbers, hopefully for A&M fans, to come down. But he did wrap 126 tackles. That led the SEC. 6 tackles for loss. He has 4 career interceptions. And as a side note, has 10,000 people following him on Twitter. Coming into a senior season, expect a big season out of Armani Watts. Okay, at number 4 and 3, going with Mike's tag team deal at Georgia, the number 1 pass defense in college football last season, which also speaks to the opposition for the Georgia Bulldogs to a certain extent last year. I've got Quincy Mauger at 4. I've got Dominick Sanders at 3. So for me, Mauger, 52 tackles, 10 tackles for loss at safety. He had 15 quarterback hurries. He got into the backfield. They had him rushing the passer quite a bit. Quincy Mauger, I've got at number 4. My number 3 player is Dominick Sanders out of Georgia. As a sophomore last year, 48 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, led the SEC, tied with Eddie Jackson, who got the extra games played in the college football playoff, led the SEC in interceptions with 6, now has 9 career interceptions. This is a guy that if you read into his story, he lost his dad to a drug overdose at the age of 6, and he says even though he didn't know his dad that well, that motivates him. That's something that he not only takes with him to the playing field on game day, but also in practice, that's a motivating factor. He thinks about it every day to play for his dad. This kid is extremely tough and was just a 3-star coming out of high school. Dominick Sanders I've got out of Georgia at number 3. All right, I give this guy a little bit more status than you two. Jamal Adams out of LSU. I think the guy's a freak of an athlete. Some of the great LSU defensive backs of recent years, Tyrann Mathieu in particular, have said that this guy can be a legendary LSU defensive back. He was just a sophomore last year, second team All-SEC, had 10 tackles against Bama, 63 tackles total, 5.5 tackles for loss, 4 picks, as David mentioned, 10 passes defensed, and he's pretty popular on Twitter with 23,000 people following him. Jamal Adams, freak athlete, physical player in the secondary at the safety position. All right, that leaves me with Eddie Jackson. I started this process thinking I was going to rate Jamal Adams just based on the eyeball test at number 1, but the superlatives for Eddie Jackson and the production just can't be denied. The pick in the national championship game, as David mentioned, 6 total, as you both mentioned, 9 career. What was impressive about this kid is he had his heart set on playing cornerback at Alabama. They saw the need for him to switch to safety. He didn't feel fully comfortable or confident in making that transition, but Nick Saban and the coaching staff saw it in him, and he's made it work to the nth degree. Second-team All-American, first-team All-SEC. Had some knee surgery this offseason, but should be ready to go. Was actually able to get on the field for the last couple spring sessions. So Eddie Jackson I have at number 1. So Jackson at 1 for me, Adams out of LSU at 2, Sanders and Mauger, the Georgia pair, 3 and 4. Armani Watts shows up on my list at number 5. Hey, Mike, I was pulling up the top 5, my personal top 5 list from 2015, and I had I knew I had Tony Connor in the mix there, Jamal Adams, Brian Randolph, Jalen Mills, and Quincy Mauger going into last season.